Georgia lawyers Bob and Irreverent D talk law. Listen up for stories about how things really happen in our legal system. Who are these guys? Dwayne Singleton, Irreverent D, is a criminal defense attorney in the state of Georgia. Benjamin O. Benson, aka Bob, is a personal injury attorney in Atlanta. On today's episode, Bob, the preacher's kid, talks about biblical ordination.
You got a collar?
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't get a collar. Yeah. Well, if you don't have the collar, you're not ordained.
Irreverent D tries to rap.
All I ever wanted was the money. Put your hands in the air if you dare. Any MFer to step over here.
And Bob ponders thug life.
I'm going to create a gang.
Right.
It's the gang of 5 lawyers who are irreverent.
Now, sit back and take a listen as Bob and Irreverent D talk law.
I noticed he was trying to be shorter, and he was still
He was still
taller. towering
over us. Yeah, it was a bit. I mean, not
because what you don't know about us is we're both 6'1".
Right.
So these guys are like
towering,
6'8", 6'9".
Exactly. They
huge
must be
giants among men.
NBA players. That's right. I mean, not that anybody would know, but we could put like little lifts.
We should.
Like, why not?
Pull a Tom Cruise. Like, I want to be taller.
That's right. That's right. Nothing wrong with that.
No, why not?
Tom Cruise, Al Pacino, Dustin Hoffman,
Samuel
L. Jackson. Have you seen how short Samuel L. Jackson is?
No.
No, he's super short. He's like this.
Are you kidding me?
No, he's not any taller than Al Pacino.
You're really like blowing apart my world right now.
Yeah, no, like it's serious. It's a serious thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the irreverent thing, I guess.
Maybe you ought to. Maybe you should change it from irreverent to Reverend D.
Well, I did work at a church in college,
right.
After college, and they, asked me like, "Are you gonna help with the summer youth kids?" And I was like, "Sure, I can do that." And then they're like, "Well, we gotta ordain you or whatever." And so
Ordained.
Yeah, so I show up.
That's a big deal.
Sunday night, and
did you have to go to a seminary?
no, we went down to the front of the church, and like everybody came out and like they put oil on my head and
right.
Prayed over me. It was a whole thing. And so I guess, does that make me a reverend?
With the Baptist churches, I'm really not sure exactly how that works.
I didn't get a little white collar.
You got a collar?
I didn't.
You didn't get a collar. Yeah. Well, if you don't have the collar, you're not ordained.
So we stay irreverent.
We stay irreverent.
Okay.
That's right. Irreverent with a T.
There you go.
Well, let's
What are we talking about?
Let's cover the news.
And now, the news.
This is a recovering of Young Thug. We're back on Young Thug. This is turning into a big, salacious trial.
And so now that you've looked into it, it's interesting, right?
It's very interesting. When we first covered this in the Christmas episode, we kind of were just doing it as not a lark, but I did not prepare for that.
Right.
And so I had not really thought through any of it. We were just kind of ad-libbing a little bit on what was going on. And now I've had some time to really kind of book this thing and have my thoughts together.
I've pulled the indictment.
You've got the indictment? All right. Now we're really ready to cover this.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Okay. Well, I'm going to take you to task on that, but first, let's recap. We were talking about how at the time the argument was that the prosecutors wanted to introduce at trial evidence of Young Thug's lyrics, and the defense position was, "Good Lord, you can't let a jury hear the lyrics." Because what that's doing is it's conflating his artistic expression of whatever he's saying in the lyrics of his song with whatever he's accused of having committed.
Right, and so if you're taking somebody's artistic expression, and you kind of have this racially motivated criminalization of the whole rap industry. So that's kind of the argument. Is like you can't. This character he plays on stage is not necessarily who he is. So when he puts this stuff on social media or he puts stuff out there, he's playing a part to his fans, right?
All right. So having reflected on that, right. I'm calling total BS.
Okay.
That's stupid. Of course his lyrics are relevant and should be heard by a jury. I love you. I love you, but I am so tired of hearing these arguments that, oh, juries can't hear about this stuff because we can't trust them to have common sense, that like when you write about something that maybe you don't mean that you actually did it. Like, were we saying juries are so stupid that they can't figure that out? That's your argument.
No, but when you have lyrics that's talking about killing 12 or whatever, or being harmful towards the police, that the argument is that's going to so upset the jury that they're not going to look at the actual facts here of the case as to what actually took place, what they can actually prove. And they're going to go, these are bad people, so bad people need to go to prison. And
you're saying that jury members are, again, you're
I'm
saying
not
that
juries are stupid.
Jury members are so stupid they can't figure that out?
No, jurors, I think, get it right more than they get it wrong.
I think that's right, too.
I think you got one judge, you got one chance to get it right, you got a 50-50 shot. If you got 12 jurors, you got a mathematical probability of getting a better result than you do with just one person. And I think jurors listen and they pay attention. And I think for the most part, they get it right. But I do think when you have a situation where even the name, where they're going to call him Young Thug, right, has this
some inflammatory
connotation that he must be a thug, right?
All right, so how would this be different? This is the conceptually thinking through this. How would this be different than if you have a murder mystery writer?
Right.
He writes a murder mystery book, The ABC Murders, and then suddenly someone dies the exact same way that he wrote ABC Murders, and he gets put on trial because he knows the person who got murdered.
Well, I think the argument on the other side was, well, maybe somebody got his book, right? And
he's free to argue that. Sure.
Used it to make this plan. We got to be able to prove that he actually committed the murder.
That's right.
Not necessarily that he just wrote about it.
That's right. But that's different. There's a difference between proving something and just having something be admissible into evidence.
And I agree. You've got a First Amendment right, but you can't go in the theater and yell fire, fire, right?
That's right.
But this indictment is...
Can we get... You're reading the indictment. Can we get an example of what...
It's
of one of the lyrics?
Pages with 56 counts.
Can you give us an example of one of the lyrics that they're trying to get into evidence?
Well, I don't know if I can necessarily read it all, but one of the parts of the RICO indictment says defendant Jeffrey Williams and associates of YSL appeared in a video released on social media titled "Ooh," where defendant states, "Red just like Elmo, but I never effing giggle."
Red, like the color red. Red just like Elmo, but I never effing giggle.
This is in the indictment.
So what do they... okay. So you're saying that... I'm so at a loss for words. They're going to introduce that into evidence.
That's what
the prosecutors are. Are they going to have like some kind of expert to get on the stand and say, well, in gang code, I never effing giggle like means something else? Like what? I don't get what they're trying to do with it.
Yeah, all I ever wanted was the money. Put your hands in the air if you dare, any MFer, to step over here.
And that's some kind of admission against interest.
They're saying that this is furtherance of their
RICO
conspiracy, gang activity. Then they've got pictures of social media posts.
Well, okay. I'm confident that if you're confident that jurors will get it right generally, and you think jurors will think it's stupid, then the outcome will be fine, right?
Well, the reason why they tie up this case and make it into a RICO case is so they don't have to have all these other little cases. Because if you just have one little marijuana case or one little assault case, and I say little assault's very serious, but you just have, then that's one thing. But when we tie it all together and we make it this giant RICO case, the point is you want to get the jurors so mad and so upset they're just like, oh, they've got to be guilty of something.
And
right?
In your experience, that can happen.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, the jury already thinks that part of their job is to come there and find
convict somebody
guilty, right?
Right. They got arrested. There must be somebody guilty.
We've had a situation with a jury trial not too long ago where one of the potential jurors, had a question, and instead of coming up to both of us or coming to the judge, like when we took a break, they went to the DA and were like, "I know somebody who's up there that they didn't ask me about. Like, they went to the DA to tell the DA because they think that's who
they say, oh, I need to talk to you about something?
Right.
Like out in the hallway?
Right, you know.
Oh, God.
Obviously had to remove
you have
them
rules, you have rules about that, right? Yeah.
But, I mean, she came to the DA and went, hey, y'all didn't ask me this question. You know, I shouldn't be here. They didn't come to me. You know, and so...
She didn't, like, raise her hand like, oh, by the way, I know the defendant?
Right.
Okay.
But, yeah, this Young Thug thing is very interesting. I'll just see how it all turns out. Because, you know, the main crime, this count 2, the murder that they're charged with and the armed robbery, count 4, count 5, count 6, he's not even named.
I was going to ask, Young Thug isn't named as being the person. But that's essentially the gist that I got was the big thing is like somebody got killed.
Right.
Right.
Now, I do think you can learn from this, like, be careful who you hang around.
All right, so then let me ask you as a point of law. Now, I understand as I'm pulling back from my law school days many years ago, I remember having learned that if I'm in a conspiracy,
right,
and one of my co-conspirators does something wrong,
everybody did it wrong.
I can be convicted. So let's say
so Georgia has a very strong, you know, party to the crime, co-conspiracy set of case laws that can tie you in. So just because you didn't necessarily pull the trigger doesn't mean you can't be held responsible.
All right, so let's use a hypothetical then. Let's say I decide I'm going to create a gang. Right. It's the gang of 5 lawyers who are irreverent.
Okay.
The irreverent gang of 5.
We have a sign. We
have a sign. It's like this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Peace.
All right. Yeah, exactly. Peace. With the thumb there. And we all hang out together and we do YouTube videos together. We do podcasts together and we do other things and we talk on our podcast about being irreverent to the system. And then we find out that one of the gang of 5 ends up assaulting somebody.
Right.
And while he's assaulting them, he says, "Gang of 5."
Because it's got to be in furtherance of the gang,
That's
right?
That's right. Yeah. Gang of 5 is best in the world. I'm hitting you over the head. Don't make fun of Gang of 5.
Don't you ever lawyer around these parts again.
Don't you? They're in the PBR lounge across the street.
That's right.
And they get in a bar fight, and he says, "Don't you ever talk bad about Gang of 5. Gang of 5 is best," and he beats the mess out of that guy.
And they find out that he rode there in the car that you rented.
That's right. That's
for
right.
The weekend, and he's got my pocket knife in his pocket.
That's right. Multi-edge weapon.
Right. Multi-edge
weapon. So I can get, if he gets convicted and there's a conspiracy charge, I can be held legally responsible, criminally responsible for him beating the mess out of the guy in the PBR lounge?
Yeah, so the conspiracy in this case here says, as an associate of the Enterprise's Young Slime Life, YSL, the defendants conspired to associate together and with others for the common purpose of illegally obtaining money, property through patterns of racketeering activities and conducting and participating in the enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activities.
So what does that mean in English?
It means they're all working together to further the gang, right?
Further the gang that's stealing from people and working people over for money.
Right.
Hunting, killing, maiming,
selling drugs.
Pillaging, selling drugs.
So you have a bunch of little cases against a bunch of individual players, and then you've got some major cases against somebody against some guys that killed somebody. And they're saying even though he wasn't part of that.
The murder.
He wasn't part of the murder, he's still responsible for it.
Because he's the one, because the murder has to do with the YSL. Right. And the murder happened because it was some kind of blood feud between YSL and some other gang.
Right.
And because of that, and he's the ringleader, according to the prosecutors of the YSL, he's responsible, or anybody else who's part of that gang is responsible for the murder, no matter whether they pulled the trigger or they didn't.
But I think it's a perfect example that these guys may not actually be the thugs that they say they are, but actually actors. Is one of the guys, Gunna, right?
Gunna, right.
He took an offered plea.
He took a what now?
An offered plea and said, basically, you got enough.
Who offered it to him?
There's a case, Off versus North Carolina, that says basically this is a best interest plea.
Offered.
Offered.
Offered, not offered. You say it so fast.
From the South.
Okay, well, you said it so fast. I just missed it. Not an offered plea, an Alford plea. Okay.
Yes.
Alford means what?
It means that it's in my best interest to take this plea. I'm not saying I'm guilty, just saying it's in the best interest to take the plea. And in that, he says, yeah, there's a gang, and yeah, they were doing bad stuff, and yeah, I think they should be shut down.
Gunna says this.
Gunna says that. If this was a real street gang, as
Gunna would be dead.
powerful as they're saying there is, one, Gunna would never say that,
Right.
because Gunna wouldn't live very long.
Right.
Like, if I'm really as bad as you say I am, you'd be a little more...
Gunna would need to be like if you're telling on the mob,
But
he would need to be in like protective custody.
Right, but
like
instead Gunna's
in Arizona
like,
somewhere.
20 years in prison versus straight probation, offered plea. I'll take.
I was looking on the Twitter, and I saw a statement, I think it was on Twitter, from Gunna saying, well, I didn't tell on anybody. I didn't rat on anybody, or some words to that effect. Like, are you saying that that's not true?
I'm not saying he made any statements, but I'm saying that when you watch the plea, he definitely is snitching. And I think the statement is snitches get stitches.
Snitches get stitches,
Right.
what I heard.
So if this was as big and bad of a gang, and heck, Gunna may
still
show
early.
up dead next week.
It's
and
still
then
early. That only
I
happened. That
may
only
eat my
just
words
happened.
and be like, well, just kidding.
Okay, so the bigger picture is reading through some of the lyrics. Now, some of the lyrics that you read are pretty tame, but there are some other ones that
I can't read.
That you can't read that are pretty salacious, like that really suggests that somebody killed somebody.
Well, they talk about some of those things, yeah. But once again, are you saying I can't sing about I killed a man in Reno just to watch him die?
Yeah. What wasn't there also? It seems to me like there was also there was a famous singer who just died about 5-10 years ago. Johnny Cash talked about killing somebody in Reno.
That's what I was saying.
Oh, that's the one.
That's the song.
That's the guy
right.
killed in Reno, right? I'm Folsom Prison.
Right.
I grew up right near Folsom Prison.
Is he really a murderer, or was that just something?
Was it just something he did?
His little stick he did. He's the man in
He's
black.
the bad. He's the bad guy. Well, I think people. It goes back to the original question: are jurors so stupid that they can't figure that out?
But it goes to the question: do we need to be scared about what we're writing down, what we're posting on social media? If I decide to throw on, to be funny, a red bandana and throw up some gang signs, am I going to get tied in on the next gang charge?
Well,
or heck, if I represent a bunch of people, are they going to try to throw me in the batch?
I get that, but like
I think the juries hopefully would get it right. But
the question is, what is right?
Right.
Like from a bigger picture, like if you're glamorizing the killing, maiming, pillaging of people, yeah, that's kind of a problem, right? I agree with you.
Every video game out there.
That's true. That's true. But I'm not saying that's right either.
We're going to prosecute the video game designers.
I'm not saying that's right either. But the good video games always have the people you're killing are zombies, not real people, right? But that's not the point. The point is that when
on Roblox they just kill each other randomly. They just run around and just kill each other.
Or Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
You
pull the girl out of the car and you kill her, and then you drive off in the car.
Right. That's also not right. Also not right.
But are we regulating morality and social norms?
By prosecuting them?
Are we targeting one group of people over another?
Right. We try not to get into political, philosophical debates here.
But it's so much fun.
But it is kind of fun.
That's
my position on that is this. Like, it's wrong to write lyrics and to glamorize the killing of people and the maiming of people and the objectifying of women and all of those things that are bad that right thinking people think are bad, right? But you don't. The remedy for that is not prosecuting them and saying he's a bad person, therefore he needs to get thrown in jail because he writes these bad lyrics. The remedy is, well, we need to have a national discussion about, maybe we shouldn't be letting our kids and listening to this stuff and
sure, but that's a parenting decision.
That's a completely different. It's a social issue. Right. That's right, not a criminal issue.
But I'm just saying we've got a 56 count indictment.
I don't understand why you keep mentioning the number of counts. Why is the number of counts?
Because they mixed them all together into one big thing. We've got 56 crimes that could have been prosecuted
separately.
And they've argued to prosecute them, and some of them will be prosecuted. Some of them have been severed. But
there's this
when you throw them all together like this, you're doing it just to force people to be so scared that they take pleas.
Okay. So it's like, but it's also like the spam idea. If you throw a can of spam against the wall, some of it's going to stick to the wall.
Right.
But you got to throw the entire contents of the can of spam on the wall for some of it to stick.
And let's say you've got 7 of these charges. And you go to trial and the jury finds you not guilty of 6 of them. You
still get convicted of 1.
You could still do 20 years, life. It depends on what the charge is. Once again, the jury doesn't know because they don't get to find out unless the new legislation passes that would allow the jury to find out.
Right now, juries can't know about what sentencing is likely to be.
That is completely at the discretion of the judge.
And they can't even know.
Right.
And if a jury member looks it up independently, that would be against the rules.
They do any investigation or do anything outside of what comes in that courtroom is against the rules.
That sounds stupid too.
You can't go Matlock it.
You can't
go out to the scene, do your own investigation.
You can't do any of that?
No.
All right. I think it's time for questions from a 10-year-old.
Those are good questions. Let's hear what we got.
Time for questions from a 10-year-old.
Wow, and suddenly she's right there. Golly, you keep
sneaky.
You keep appearing out of nowhere, just like that. All right, 10-year-old, tell us your question. By the way, these questions are not prepared in advance. No, well, she prepares them in advance, but we don't know what they are. They're completely spontaneous.
Appear to be in her handwriting. So
yes, okay. They have not been fed to her.
All right.
All right, go ahead, 10-year-old. Tell us your question.
To be a lawyer, must you read the Constitution?
That's a good question.
The Constitution of the United States or the Constitution of Georgia or both?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Unfortunately, you do take constitutional law, but I'm not sure if all lawyers in my class read through the whole Constitution.
We did. Yeah, constitutional law was a required course. But that does not mean that I remember anything about the Constitution. And it also does not mean that I ever thought that constitutional law was real instead of just made up. We did have to actually read parts of the Constitution.
Right.
That's right. But, the parts where courts interpret what the Constitution means, I have my own personal feelings that most of that's just made up. And they make it up as they go along.
We should probably all read the Constitution more often.
That's right.
I have a follow-up.
You have a follow-up question?
All
Give
right.
us your follow-up question.
Have you ever read the
We the people in order to form a more perfect union?
No, We the People of the United States of America.
Oh, yes. I stand corrected. In order to form a more perfect union. It's interesting. When we adopted the Constitution, which was after the Declaration of Independence, obviously, the Constitution at the time was the only written Constitution that existed. No, we use the word Constitution. It just meant before ours was written. It just meant that there was a way that we had government happen.
So before the Masons and the Illuminati and the Lizard people wrote the Constitution?
That's right.
Okay.
Before all of those people imposed it on us as the thing. Now, the preamble to I think it's the preamble to the Declaration of Independence is what it is. We are the people.
Of the United States of
No,
America.
that's the preamble to the Constitution.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not the Declaration.
Have you ever
been
read
studying this?
Oh my gosh, we're getting schooled by a 10-year-old.
Yes.
All right, that's been questions from a 10-year-old.
I might want to pre-read the questions from
Right?
the 10-year-old.
Well, we may have to start.
So I can bone up on the Constitution.
She's starting to stump us. Well, here's
just
to
like another episode.
Another episode gone. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next time when Bob and Irreverent D talk law.